Get your mental road to healing started. The opinions expressed on the following sponsored program are strictly those of the host, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors. Welcome to the Caregiver Reality Show, hosted by gerontologist and family caregiver expert David Levy, speaking on a topic that is not only a national problem, but an international one, and represents one of the biggest dilemmas facing us today: Alzheimer's disease and dementia. With no cure in sight and hundreds more being diagnosed weekly, Alzheimer's is more feared than cancer or heart disease. Join us as David Levy breaks it down and educates, informs, and explains useful caregiver strategies and techniques that 25 years of non-clinical family caregiving have taught him. You can listen or call in and be part of the show. 888-565-1470 to ask your questions. And now, here's David Levy.
Good evening, Boca Raton, America, and the world. You're listening to the Caregiver Reality Show on WWNN 1470, broadcasting locally out of Boca Raton, Florida. Or you're watching us on caregiverreality.com, where we're live streaming to you around the world. And if you want to call in, it's 888-565-1470. And today I have a good friend and colleague with me, Paul Vattiato. And he attended the FCOA convention, the Florida Council on Aging, last week. And I asked him to come back in and have a few words. Before we start, I want to make a point. Last week I had a discussion about life and death in assisted living, and it was all about the Emeritus Corp. This week, unbeknownst to me and others in my organization, the streaming capability on the website all of a sudden inserted advertising for Emeritus and a few others that we had no idea went on. And I just want to let the audience know before we get started that we at this point do not take paid advertising from anybody. It takes away your objectivity, and we certainly did not approve of the Emeritus interruption. And so what we have done on the website is there is a download there for either Chrome or Microsoft Explorer to silence those pop-ups. And so I just want to apologize to anybody that went to the website and had to encounter that. So anyway, good evening. Sorry for the slow break. Paul, how you doing today? It's another brutally hot day in Boca Raton, that's for sure.
My gosh, it sure is. Always a pleasure to be here, David. Thank you for inviting me today. And I have to tell you that your program has become a staple in our house on Monday evening. The information is first class, and we want to thank you.
All right, well, you're more than welcome, and that's what I'm trying to do. As I said to the caller last week, not only is it my mission, it's my passion, and I hope that the passion comes through, because I'm very sincere about what I'm doing. I wouldn't be doing it for 25 years if I didn't feel that way.
Clearly, you're hitting your goal.
All right, well, thank you.
David, both at the FCOA convention and in your program last week, you were talking about the Purple Panel,
right,
and its report that came out. Now, my understanding is that they're going to be reporting to the Florida legislature with recommendations.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about what those recommendations are? I heard there's supposed to be 31 points they brought forward.
Well, yes. You had to leave a little bit earlier, but I saw the panel presentation that went on from 4 to 5:30. And the Purple Ribbon Panel was, as we talked about last week, was created by the legislature through the good services of Senator Matt Hudson, and who is a real driver for understanding Alzheimer's and better health care related to the caregiver as well as the Alzheimer's patient. And through the legislature, they mandated, and it started last January, and they created this Purple Ribbon Panel. that was composed of elder law attorneys, people from the Alzheimer's Disease Initiative, doctors, lay caregivers. It was a very well-balanced panel. And over the last 6 months, because they had to make their report to the legislature and to the public on August 1st, they have worked very diligently, and a couple weeks ago I had on Scott Solkoff, who was the elder law attorney who was part of that, and he was one of the presenters at the Florida Council on Aging. But to get to the point, there were 31 recommendations. Obviously, not all 31, because some of them require external funding, but many, many of them only require a little fine-tuning with what we have already. But they focus around, and as I've said before, they focus to a great degree on educating the caregiver and to a degree also the public, because they may become caregivers, but they were pretty focused on it. And the first thing, and I'm just going to hit what I thought were the top 5 and not get into all of the other ministerial things, because we don't have time, and I don't think the audience needs to get on that. If you want to hear and see more about it, it's posted on the Caregiver Reality website. But the top 5 that I saw in no particular order, all right, was to conduct a survey of family caregivers who are facing not only Alzheimer's disease but related dementias. And so that's what we're calling ADRD, Alzheimer's disease and related dementias. And we know there are 50-some-odd dementias, reversible, irreversible, but the top 3 are Alzheimer's, temporal frontal lobe, and certainly Parkinson's. The second recommendation that I picked out was provide demonstration funding to address the unique challenges faced by young onset Alzheimer's, because we're starting to see much more dementia appearing in those under 65. A matter of fact, today, and you and I were discussing it outside, the NIH produced a very scary report that said there were a number of identifiable risks that appear in teenagers that may indicate dementia in the future, and the top one, alcohol. You're right. So that if you've got the genetics and other characteristics, if you were a serious drinker when you were a teen, what we're learning is that kind of insult to the brain. Remember, we always heard, you drink alcohol, you kill those brain cells. Well, you don't know what else you're doing. It's a pretty strong chemical. All right. Assess the needs of persons with ADRD and their caregivers, including persons of all cultural backgrounds having ADRD. And this is something that I have spoken often about and feel very strongly about, is that anybody can get Alzheimer's. People of color, people of different race, religion, origins, etc. And one of the important things is that we are culturally and ethnically congruent. In other words, we just can't send anybody in to talk to anybody. They have to be able, A, to speak the language, be respectful of the culture that they may be dealing with that caregiver and their loved one. And so I thought that this was a very good one to assess the needs across the spectrum of potential need persons. Update dementia-specific training requirements for employees in care settings. This, to me, is one of my mantras, because what we do know is, and especially now, and we'll get into it in a little bit, there is a tremendous push right now to try and find competent, qualified people to work in home care, to be part of the Medicaid enrollment programs that we're going to be talking about later, in assisted living and nursing home and other care facilities. And unfortunately, with good intentions, these people go to work, but they're not trained to really recognize and deal with Alzheimer's disease and related dementia. And one of the reasons is it's a very, very tricky disease. It has a lot of behavioral issues attached to it. And if a loved one in the family is having a hard time with it, believe me, somebody hired to do it without that kind of training and without the potential devotion and dedication, it leaves something to be desired. I'm not taking a swipe at the industry. What I'm saying is, across the board, anybody dealing with families like this can use extra training. All right, there's just no question about it. And the fifth one that I liked was ensure persons and family caregivers affected by ADRD have better access to memory screening and support. You know, one of the big problems is that Alzheimer's starts, or, you know, temporal frontal lobe, and each starts a little differently. All right, many times it's a behavioral issue, and so people think it's psychological, psychiatric. We've discussed that before. And so they don't think that it requires anything more than a behavioral kind of an approach. And many times now we're discovering that it is ADRD. And unless we have good memory screening, and that's more than just the mini mental, but the COG32, which is another version of how we go about assessing both dementia patients, and there are other ones that help caregivers understand what their role and what they've seen in the past. A lot of times we go back and talk to the family and talk to the relatives because they saw what was happening way before either the patient did, or sometimes their spouse or the person who's the caregiver, in as much as there's a lot of denial. Nobody wants to face this disease, and we'd rather call it a senior moment and skip over it than get down to the real issue of whether we have it and what can we do about it and how can we enhance quality of life. As you and I have discussed, and others, that by having better education as a caregiver to understand problem solving and coping skills, we know that the scientific evidence says that a calmer, more capable caregiver slows down the progression of the disease, because it removes a lot of the tension in the home that doesn't help somebody who has cognitive issues. So those were the top five. They all kind of resolved around education, which is one of the things that, as you well know, I'm very big on. That was what I won the award for, the media award from the Florida Council on Aging on my caregiver workbook. And would you believe, Paul, that we're getting close to a break already, and we haven't even gotten into the meat of the day? So, Freddie, what do we got left before we have to take a break? Now? Oh, there's a caller? Oh, okay. I'm sorry. We're going to take a break now. Excuse me. We'll go to a break. When I come back, Paul and I will be discussing something that I think you'll find very important, and it's all about the new Medicaid enrollment. And there are serious things that everybody who's involved in it needs to know. So you're going to hear it first, right after the break.
Hello. Are you a family caregiver? Are you taking care of a spouse, parent, or loved one who can no longer care for themselves? Are you dealing with Alzheimer's disease and don't know what to do? Are you stressed, burned out, frustrated, and don't know where to turn? Have you realized that your doctor, lawyer, and mental health professionals don't have real practical answers? You need a non-clinical family caregiver expert that the professionals turn to. You need David Levy. He is a family caregiver expert with 25 years of active experience with thousands of family caregivers. He can help you provide a better quality of life for you and your loved one. Contact David Levy at dlevy@caregivered.org. That's dlevy@caregivered.org. Or call 561-482-0086. And let's get your mental road to healing started.
Okay. Well, we're back, and remember, we're streaming to you live on caregiverreality.com. We're also here at WWNN 1470, and you can call if you have a question, 888-565-1470. I'm here with Paul Vattiato. He's one of the advisors to the American Association for Caregiver Education, which helps to create a lot of the educational materials that we use in our teaching and training and that are available through Caregiver Reality. Anyway, Paul, back to you. I know I kind of took up that first chunk of the day.
It was great information, David. Thank you. And I know we really want to get to these enrollments coming up, but I do have something real quick that I wanted to say and get your thoughts on. The FCOA award that you won, the Gold Award for Media Excellence, I mean, that's quite an acknowledgement of the quality and the expertise that you've brought to the work. Do you have any thoughts on that award and what it really means for our listeners?
Well, you know, when I first heard it, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to talk on top of you. When I first heard that I had won, because as you know, I didn't submit anything to them. It was a surprise. And I thought, I've received awards in the past, you know, and so I was very grateful. But when I went there and I saw the enthusiasm and I saw the recognition that people were giving to this non-clinical approach to family caregiving, it was very, very rewarding. I really had no idea that it had. I mean, I always thought what I did was significant, but that's me. But it was very, very gratifying to see the kind of response we got. And you and I were together when I walked down the hallway to go into one of the rooms to listen to one of the presentations. And there is a laminated poster on an easel board that was about 3 feet by 5 feet of a picture of me. And I said, oh, my God, I don't look that bad, do I? And so, matter of fact, Paul has it in his car. He brought it home for me. And I'm going to now take it home. And the picture is going in the attic because we have a squirrel problem. And I know the minute they see it, they'll be right out to soffit. And I won't have to call in an exterminator. It's a very safe way to do it.
See, and I thought that was your bar mitzvah picture.
Right, yeah.
David, getting to a more serious topic, these enrollments that are coming up now.
This is critical stuff, Paul.
They're starting right now, and some of the things I'm hearing are real scary. Can you sort of break it down for us and let us know what's happening?
Sure. They started enrolling in Brevard County and one or two others at the 1st of August. And there was a big article in yesterday's Palm Beach Post that talked about and quoted certain individuals that this was a real hurry up and catch up kind of a thing because they weren't really ready to start enrollment quite at the level that they thought they were. They didn't have the people, etc. But I'm going to jump to something that I found to be probably more distressing than anything. I mean, we are dealing with, in the Medicaid population, and it's starting with long-term care. Next year, Medicaid will be enrolling for medical care. So we're dealing now with folks in nursing homes that are on diversion programs for long-term care at home. All right? And starting at the 1st of September, we start doing that in Palm Beach, Okeechobee, St. Lucie, Martin County, and then the following month we go to Broward. So this is an incredibly quick pace. And there are 4 major providers that are doing this enrollment. American Elder Care, which is now being bought by Humana for $2.5 billion. They have a ticket in every state, in every county rather, to enroll throughout the state of Florida. Coventry, which was bought by Aetna. The Sunshine State Health Plan, which is owned by Centene, which is another large healthcare organization, and United Healthcare of Florida, which we've all seen either in Major Medical, Medicare Advantage, etc. So these are the 4 players. They've been active as healthcare coordinators for a while. One of the quotes from the gentleman that owns or is the CEO of American Elder Care. He made the comment that now that they're enrolling all of these folks into Medicaid, everybody will have a care manager. And while I respect his wisdom and his understanding, we just don't have enough care managers if we wanted to take care of these first 8,000 that we're going to be enrolling in the next couple of months. Ultimately, there are hundreds of thousands of persons in Florida that are on Medicaid. Now, here's the first thing. By Thursday, you have to make a choice. This Thursday, which would be the 23rd, all right? And you have to make your choice, or the state of Florida will make it for you. Now, here's a couple of predicaments. You're dealing with folks with dementia, folks with frailties, with hearing problems, with vision problems. And what I learned in the last couple of days is if you're their caregiver and you have a durable power of attorney, but you have not registered, and if it's not on file with the state, They will not talk to you. So how are they going to deal with a 92-year-old that has aborting dementia or bad eyesight or bad hearing? Now, this started to happen in Brevard County, and what they did is they told them to call the Agency for Health Care Administration, the Elder Care Division, and they were swamped. The phones were swamped, and they were sending them to other telephone numbers because there was no clear path about how to go about getting that thing to the state in a timely manner, and what did they mean by having it registered or filed. All right. Did that document have to be filed in court, or did it simply have to be a current copy sent to the state and acknowledged against that caregiver's social security number or whatever other identifiers that there were? So I'm telling the audience right now that if you are dealing with a caregiver, where you're dealing with your loved one and you're a caregiver and you have not sent your durable power of attorney to the state, then the folks that are coming around to sign you up can't do it. Now, most of you that are in or that have loved ones in a nursing home or an assisted living memory that have that take Medicaid on diversion already have their durable powers of attorney, and most of those facilities have filed them on behalf of either themselves or the caregiver. There are many nursing homes where there is no caregiver, and the nursing home becomes the caregiver of record with the durable power of attorney. So this is critical. All right. Now, after Thursday, if they place you in a Medicaid program and it's not to your liking, because here's the next thing we have to worry about. Just like with Medicare Advantage, what they're calling Medicaid Choice, you now have to figure out, and it's kind of tough because there isn't enough information out there yet, are your current providers in that Medicaid panel? Or your doctor, your dentist, your chiropractor, whoever it is that you use on a regular basis, as well as your pharmacy, etc., are they in those panels? So how do we expect them to figure it out for themselves when the organizations themselves aren't clear who's in the panel? And I'm gonna jump to two quick things. Number one, you need to know that these various plans are being paid to enroll you. So it's to their liking right now to try and get in front of you and tell you that they can do all of it. And maybe they can. But unless they can tell you that all your doctors and everybody else are in the panel, doesn't mean anything. All right? So everybody's got to do their homework, and at least there'll be a 90-day correction period where if it isn't correct, you can go ahead and do it. But boy, it's going to be a big problem, Paul.
David, you
yeah.
said they can go back and redo it.
Well, they can. In other words, if they don't make a choice on Thursday,
right,
all right, then they'll be assigned to a plan. And if they discover that that plan does not have their providers in it over the subsequent 90 days, then they're allowed to opt out and move into another plan. All right. They were quoting a few people, one of whom was a gentleman by the name of Keith Myers, and he is the CEO at Morse Geriatric up in Palm Beach. Mm-hmm. And he was saying that, there's supposed to be uniformity in the contracts from all of these providers. And the Area Agency on Aging is empowered to give them the version of the standard contract. All right. And already some of these providers have given incentives, like the one quoted by Morse Geriatric, that for the savings that they may be able to generate towards Medicaid, they'll give them 15%. All right? And Mr. Myers turned around and said, do you know that every Medicaid patient I have in a bed costs me $45 a day? So where are the savings going to come from? One of the issues is, at least for the next 3 years, all right, the federal government will keep Medicaid reimbursement at the rates that they're at now. However, after 3 years, it's going to be open negotiation. And so we may begin to see facilities fall by the wayside because, remember, these Medicaid choice programs have to make $1 too, and part of what they're empowered to do is save money. So this is going to be a problem that we're going to need to discuss further. I had 10 major points that I wanted to make about this, but I see that once again our time's running short. But they were quoting somebody that was with the state, an elder law attorney. Her name was Twyla Sketchy. And she said this privatization of Medicaid has put a huge strain on the most vulnerable group. Look what we have asked people to do for long-term care. They need to know who their providers are. They need to know who the managed plans are. They have to figure it out if their plan is contracted with their providers. She ended her remarks with, if you have someone who has dementia or cognitive problems and vision and hearing loss, how are you supposed to do that? So, Paul, this is a monumental problem that we have not even begun to see the tip of the iceberg with yet. We're accelerating through geographic areas of the state to begin this massive enrollment. And while it may only start with 8,000, that's an awful lot of people that have to be accounted for serially.
And we're talking about our most vulnerable people.
Absolutely. I mean, these are our elders on Medicaid, and for the most part, they have infirmities and complications that do not allow them to get on the phone and say, how do I file my caregiver's durable power of attorney with you? So this is a major problem. We're down to a minute. Paul, I want to thank you. I know that you didn't get an opportunity to converse as long as we wanted to. Hopefully, folks, if we hear from you guys, this show's going to go to an hour, and we'll be able to discuss things within a reasonable length of time, cover more subjects, because the field of caregiving and informal family caregiving is growing geometrically, and if we don't educate the caregiver, if the public isn't aware of what they do, we're in trouble. It's my mission. It's my passion. I want to thank you, Boca Raton, America, and the world. We'll be back next Monday with new and current information, and we're going to let you know it, because if you have to know it, you'll hear it here first. Thank you.
Thanks, David.
You have been listening and watching David Levy, gerontologist and non-clinical family caregiving expert. Visit our website at caregiverreality.com and hear and see unscripted family caregiver support groups discussing all of the questions that you have wanted to ask but didn't know where to turn. Tune in again next time for more updates and special guests who bring their caregiving experience to you so that you can deal with your problems and hear how family caregiving is affecting fellow Americans just like you. The opinions expressed on the preceding sponsored program were strictly those of its hosts, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors.